back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast brought to you by MidFirst Bank. Go to midfirstbank.com/U40 and check out the OU Rewards credit card. We welcome in the entire crew once again. Josh McQuistion, Eddie Radosevich, Bob Brzbillo, and myself, Carrie Murdoch here, as we just got finished with the Lincoln Riley teleconference today. And NFL Draft coming up starting tomorrow on Thursday. So if you're listening to this on Thursday, it's today. But obviously, a couple of Sooners expected to go. I know I'm gonna kill Chris Plank, by the way, because I saw that he put out something about Jalen Hurts possibly going late first round. I'm gonna kill him, and I know he listens to this podcast.
I'd not heard that one.
Chris, you know I'm gonna kill you.
Hoaxes going around right now in the country. That's the biggest hoax that's out there. Is the idea that Jalen Hurts should be a first-round draft pick.
Chris Plank, go start your Facebook group now, all right?
Guys, I wish we could put it...
That's pretty wild, though. Just the... I don't know. I don't know if you want to call it, like, making up for lost time or whatever, but, I mean, this idea that Jalen Hurts continues to rise up the draft boards, has been almost my number one takeaway from the pre-draft buildup for Oklahoma. And by the way, I'm about as excited for the 2020 NFL Draft as I've ever been for a draft.
It's like become the Masters, the NBA Finals with the Thunder in it, all rolled into one.
It's going to be awesome. I mean, and I say that like kind of jokingly, but it's the first taste of sports we've had. I'm cheering for mass chaos.
Here's the thing.
When you look at Hurts.
Go ahead, Bob.
The thing about Hurts, what did Hurts do at the combine or pro day that we didn't expect that all of a sudden made him rise up the boards? That's what I'm still trying to figure out.
He showed great leadership at the combine.
There's absolutely nothing to add to that because he didn't show dick.
I don't understand it. This is the time of year when like tape is usually seeing guys fall. And then you've got PFF putting out things like Jalen Hurts has a clear path to success in the NFL with his running ability, accuracy, and refusal to turn it over. I can't. I can't even. I don't know where to start with that.
I swear to God, I hope that was a intern or somebody that just threw together a tweet and that wasn't actually like a statement based on logic that they reached through watching film. You know what I mean?
If it was an intern, that intern's name was Jalen Hurts.
Well, if it wasn't Jalen, it was somebody with the last name of Hurts.
It was attributed to a guy named Mike Renner, who is credited as being PFF's lead draft analyst. PFF is Pro Football Focus, for those out there that don't know.
Which they do a great job with most stuff. I mean,
They do.
And that was a little, but I didn't play enough shit on Jalen Hurts start to this podcast. I'm going to go check and see if I'm blocked now after this podcast.
Yeah, we're going to become known as the four people, and I think I already maybe am, but the four OU people that just absolutely hated Jalen Hurts. And I guess that's fits for me, but I don't know about you guys. I think you're getting a bad name because you're associated with me.
I'm going to leave the name out of the party involved, but I got a very interesting text message in the middle of the week from a very prominent OU media member that is very much on our side of this thing.
I got the same. I got the same.
I'm going to guess it's the same person, Carrie.
God, I can't even say something else without outing somebody. So
that's where I'm at. I mean, like, it's a known enough name that if I say it, it's gonna. I don't want to put them out there. It was said in private, so I'll leave it there. But yeah, I
got blocked by Benny Wiley this week.
Yeah, I know. That's bizarre.
Whoa. What?
That's a bizarre block. Like, I'm blocked by Spencer Rattler, and I know why that is because I was screwing around with his videos about him, throwing behind the back and stuff, and I was doing redneck guy, And I was like, won't you focus on something that wins games instead of screwing around? Like, and he took it like as I really felt that way, which I'm fine. It does bring into question whether or not he's going to be a successful quarterback at OU now, but we won't go there.
I got to find out. I looked for Benny Wiley and I searched him and I did not find him. So I'm wondering if I'm blocked too. Although I don't know.
Uh-oh.
Josh, you got me in trouble somehow. I'm guilty by association with you now.
Exactly. I dragged you down, Eddie. Mm-hmm. That was me.
I'm just mad that I can't go to any of the Wednesday morning Facebook workouts. Or maybe I should. Maybe I should show up to the one next week and say, you can't kick me out of here. But then again, I'd have to probably work out, and that probably wouldn't work out for me personally. So I digress.
You do enough working out.
By the way,
you got to carry the morning show.
B. Wiley
Sure.
Strong is the name, and I am not blocked, thank God.
I'm not blocked either. Okay, I literally just found him.
I've just gotten unblocked from Cale Gundy, so...
Whoa!
Yes.
That is huge news.
That's big news. He's not following me, but he unblocked me.
Well, before we move on, I will say that this is my public plea. Benny Wiley should probably unblock me. That seems unfair unless he is taking the job at Tulsa University. That would be kind of an interesting roundabout.
And you think it was just for doing that Photoshop job of you and him and Lincoln in his garage?
I mean, that's the only controversial thing, and that's not even controversial. That's the only crazy thing that I've done lately. Not like we've been around anybody, so I'm not sure. I thought it was pretty damn funny though when I realized that yesterday.
Maybe you two can
and
go.
I think it was pretty recent.
Maybe you two can go to the nail salon together Friday.
My cuticles look like shit right now, Carrie. I need to go in.
I do wish you could go back and find the tweet that got you blocked by people.
I know that would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Oh, well.
It happens. It's part of the business. It's part of being a jackass. It's happened to me. It's happened to you.
I know that it 100% comes. Like, I think that I tagged him in that picture on Instagram, but that wouldn't make sense for me being blocked on Twitter. So, I don't know. Maybe somebody tagged him in that picture. I have no idea. Either way, I thought it was pretty damn funny, and it was a good workout. I enjoyed being around him in Lincoln in the morning. So
maybe he's just offended because he saw the video of you and your defense on that basketball court while you were smoking a cigarette, and he's like, I got to block this guy. He's hopeless.
That would have been fine. And you know what? That actually would be pretty understandable.
As a health professional, he's just offended by you.
I think that's probably fair.
All right, so we did talk to Lincoln Riley today. It was a pure draft. It was a let's say it was 25-minute teleconference. He was driving. You could hear his windshield wipers in the background. We've been getting a little rain, a little bit of hail here in Oklahoma City, the metro. And so he didn't have a lot of time, and it was all business about the draft. So, Bob, let's start with you since we never let you talk. Your takeaways, just one takeaway from it that really stood out to you.
I mean, I guess we'll stray away from the usual names, and I didn't know that Lee Morris was going to be brought up, but that might have been the most enlightening answer of the 25 minutes, is talking about how many people within NFL circles have been asking him about Lee and what OU did to make Lee so successful, and could that continue at the next level. And it seems pretty clear that if it's not at receiver, and I'm not sure if it would be, special teams seems like a clear calling for Morris, where he could play years and years and years doing just that. I still don't think he'll be one of the names picked Thursday through Saturday, but he'll be one of the first names when that final draft is selected in terms of those undrafted free agents. And there's no doubt that, in my mind, if he gets a chance, he's going to make it count and he's going to make a roster.
Somebody's got to like him as a receiver in order for him to get drafted. I mean, you're just not going to get drafted for being a potential special teams guy, when you're not a kicker or a punter. So, and look, I mean, you put on the tape, you watch him, the guy All he did for a couple of years was score touchdowns. He wasn't as present in the offense with Jalen Hurts, although he started to catch more and more balls as the season went along. But there's no doubt he was a much bigger part of the offense when Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray were behind center. But I mean, God, has anybody made more plays? You think of all the people that have played in this offense and been drafted, whether it's Mark Andrews or Sterling Shepard or D.D. Westbrook, CeeDee Lamb, like he's right up there with those guys in terms of touchdowns and production.
Yeah, I think so. And, he seems like he's the type of guy, too, that you're not going to have to worry about, obviously, off the field. I think that him showing up and doing his job is kind of the last thing that you have to worry about with Lee. I mean, he's going to do it. And, I think it's interesting, too, that he made a lot of plays. Like, going back to look at how many tackles he actually made on kickoff coverage and stuff, I think he's going to have to go to somebody, though, that is going to have to be like, we like you. And obviously, if you're going to get drafted, they like you, but they're going to have to seek him rather than him being offering something that is just incredibly gifted, if you will. That makes sense.
Well, and I thought, the other thing, that just off the top, Lincoln was asked about CeeDee Lamb, or not off the top, but one of the, he was asked about CeeDee Lamb, and one of the, I think one of the, things that people talk about in terms of is he the first pick in the draft is, can he be a better route runner? I think that's something he's kind of been knocked, for a little bit. Lincoln was asked about comparing him to Jerry Jeudy, and he said he didn't want to do that just because he doesn't coach Jeudy, so he can't really speak on how he does that. But, as far as Lincoln is concerned, I mean, he didn't seem to back down from saying that, he doesn't see a problem with route running or that's going to cost him any kind of a draft position. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your support.
I was going to let Josh chime in, but yeah, I mean, when you watch Lamb, I never thought route running was a big detriment to him. I didn't think it was something that he just failed at. I mean, what was interesting with him was just how much better he became once he had the ball in his hands. I didn't know. I knew he could high point a ball. You've seen that enough. So the competitive catch was not going to ever be a thing. You're going to wonder about Lamb. But when he started taking 2-yard screens and make them into 7 to 75-yard touchdowns, that's a part of his game I didn't think existed. And that's where I felt he went over the top. You add in the way that he loves blocking and he's good at it. I feel he'll be the first receiver to come off the board, and my only question is how high does he eventually get? Does someone try to trade up to get him, or does he fall somewhere in the lower teens?
The fun thing about CeeDee Lamb is the fact that I think that everybody kind of agrees is he's gotten so much better every year. He's taken that step that you kind of expected him to take, whether it be, getting bigger from his freshman to sophomore year or improving on yards after the catch from his junior to or sophomore to junior year to now. It's been fun. And I was going back and looking through some of the high school tape that Josh was able to get going all the way back when he was still at Richmond. And to see the progression that he's made, I would have to think that his best football, and I know it's cliche to say, but his best football is ahead of him. I think he could be a guy, and I don't think it's crazy to say, and we kind of said it going into last year, was I think he's the best wide receiver to play at Oklahoma. I think he's going to have the best career when it's all said and done in the NFL. I mean, I think he could be a multiple-year Pro Bowl, perennial, big-time name on that stage type guy. And to see where he's grown is just – it's kind of incredible. I'm going to put together some highlights and stuff, and we'll run those throughout the day on Thursday. We'll throw them on the board, and we can throw them on Twitter as well and Facebook on Sooner Scoop. Just kind of seeing how much he's taken or how far he's come. It's incredible. He is, I think, everything that you could have wanted, and then some, as far as the type of player that Oklahoma originally thought they were getting when they signed him.
It's interesting. If you look at the, I'm sorry, Bob, you didn't talk before. I'm talking over you now. because somebody's got to talk. If you look at the history of receivers, even in just the state of Oklahoma, include Oklahoma State, because they've had some great college receivers. Start with Rashawn Woods, Justin Blackmon, Des Bryant. I don't want to go. I mean, Hartley Dykes is so old school. You guys probably don't care. But then you go to Oklahoma and Mark Clayton and, all the receivers that they've had recently, Sterling, D.D., Marquise Brown. And, you've had all these receivers, yet none of them for either school. And look at the guys that Texas has had, the Roy Williams and Lima Swedes and all those guys. Like, none of those guys have become like a DeAndre Hopkins or a Julio Jones. Like, nobody locally with all the great All-American receivers, even Biletnikoff winners, nobody's gone on to the NFL to even be like Jordy Nelson. Like, they just haven't had that superstar NFL guy. To me, like you said, Eddie, you think he's the best receiver that's ever played at Oklahoma. I do too, and I think he's going to be the best receiver that we've ever seen from this state at the NFL level. I think he could be a DeAndre Hopkins type player in the NFL.
Do you think he will be a number one receiver right out the gate?
Yes. I mean, he's going to be drafted if he goes to the Raiders. He's their guy. I mean, he's the best receiver that they have on their roster.
The more I look at it, and I think that's a good question, Bob, because I think it's obviously situational. I mean, if somehow he was to end up with the Cardinals, which I think is a long shot at this point, but, like you look at a situation like the one that I think makes a lot of sense would be good for him is Denver. You've got a young quarterback. You've got a wide receiver opposite him in Cortland Sutton that I think would be a really good fit between the two of them. Kind of similar skill sets, but that way you can kind of flip the field with either one of them, do some different things. But, I think that situation would be nice because it would give CD a little bit of time. Because really, if you think about it, in his college career, CD spent 1 year as the guy. I mean, he was kind of – Robin to Marquise's Batman as a sophomore. I mean, and it's obviously as a freshman, he was just kind of getting his feet under himself. So I think that might ease the transition a little bit. But, I mean, I'm not here to doubt that CeeDee Lamb could handle being the number one for somebody if he needed to be. Now, is he going to be a Pro Bowl number one, like a Calvin Johnson type number one his first year? Heck no. That's not going to happen. But I would say, outside of a few options of guys like Chase Young, stuff like that, I think CeeDee Lamb and Kenneth Murray are about as surefire quality NFL players as you can find in the first round. I mean, like those guys, I don't have any reason to doubt that, they may not, I don't know if they'll be superstars like, Kerry mentioned Hopkins. I think they both could be, but if you were just going to say these guys are going to be 10-year pros, pick 5, out of this first-round group, I would say both those two would probably work their way into my 5. I think they're both going to be very good NFL players.
And the thing we've talked about with CD over the years is going from good to great to elite. And I think you guys talked about the jump that he's made this year. You look at, the plays that he made against LSU where he was just the best player on the field at receiver. You look at the run he had against Kansas State, when they needed a big play. Look at the stuff he did against Texas. I mean, that was ridiculous, elite-level stuff. And even Baylor in the Big 12 championship game when he broke that play down the sideline, eventually got caught. But we saw flashes of that type of CeeDee Lamb his sophomore year, but his junior year was like every game. It was frustrating at times because he didn't get the ball enough, but every time he did get it, his electricity to catch ratio was like 80%.
Oh, I mean, you look at the Kansas State game. I mean, he was the spark that caused that whole comeback to Oklahoma to even have a chance. And that was everybody was so down at that moment that I think people forget what an unbelievable play that was on that catch and run against Kansas State where it may have been better than his scores against Texas. He had no business scoring on that play, especially with a team that looked, dead walking at that point in the game.
It's funny that we're talking about how well CD can do. And, Kerry, you mentioned, I don't want to say the lack of success, but there just haven't been a whole lot of guys to come out of Oklahoma and have a ton of success at the NFL level I think Mark Clayton probably is in there. Kenny Stills, obviously, he gets overlooked a lot, but
he really does.
We're almost kind of we're looking at like the renaissance of the OU wide receiver in the NFL between, or at least the pass catcher, I guess, between you can throw Mark Andrews in there certainly right now. D.D. Westbrook, Marquise Brown, CeeDee's about to be in that group. And then, obviously you look at the talent that they have on campus, and it's easy to see why they've had so much success offensively. And that's a pretty obvious statement. But, as a whole, it really isn't something that has happened a whole lot in Norman.
I didn't even mention Malcolm Kelly and Adarius Bowman. Remember those two? Going head-to-head along with, Jordy Nelson. They were Jordy Nelson, Malcolm Kelly, Adarius Bowman, all in the Big 12 at the same time.
You think it's
Jordy
no question
Nelson.
that CeeDee will be better than a Dez Bryant?
No.
Ooh,
Dez is really
that's
good.
tough.
I mean, I think they actually have fairly comparable games, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, they're very similar.
Can CeeDee get that big? I just remember thinking Dez Bryant was massive.
He is he's one of those guys that it feels like is this racist moment, but there are certain people that your only comparison is to an animal, to a horse. Like when you see certain athletes, and that was always Dez Bryant to me. Like he's not even human, and Kenneth Murray's kind of that way too.
He was one of those guys that started that trend, and I mean it's still there to a degree, but it's died off a little bit, where it was guys playing receiver that almost look like running backs. I mean, they're just so big and powerful. There was that guy that Dallas had for a couple of years. He was good for 3 or 4 years, and then he just kind of fell off the map. And I can't remember what the hell his name was. I mean, obviously, Dez was with the Cowboys too, but it was a different guy. But there was this whole run in the NFL there where you had these big kind of burly guys.
Kind of started with Anquan Bolden.
Yeah, he's a good example of what I'm talking about. Absolutely.
Oh, the if kind of what you're describing, Josh, it reminds me of the kid up at Seattle right now. What's his name? Kid from Ole Miss, just that got drafted last night.
Metcalf.
DJ Metcalf.
Yeah. Just I mean, like I said, I mean, there's no reason for a dude to be built like that. Metcalf always reminded me, and Eddie and Bob may not remember this guy. I know, Carrie, you will. He reminds me of David Boston.
Yeah.
When Boston was just freakishly large and came out of Ohio State and was so good and then got even bigger once he hit the pro ranks. I think at one point he was playing at 245 or something in the NFL at receiver, and that's just insane.
Were you thinking of Miles Austin? The Cowboys receiver?
Yeah. I think that is I think that's right. And what happened? Because I didn't even think about it when I started that comment. I don't really know what happened to him.
Hopefully
he had
got his teeth fixed.
Ironically, I think or no, I guess it's not ironic, but I actually know what happened to him. I think he's just living in Dallas, working in the business world.
He got a bunch of money and then he just faded away. It was one of those deals. He got that big contract and it was he just wasn't a deal anymore.
He's just hosting party events for Cowboys running backs and quarterbacks and stuff.
Only during pandemics. It's a real niche market.
That's the other thing. Kenneth Murray, I think we've all seen. I think everybody agrees he'll be a first round pick. To me, that's one guy. I wonder for Kenneth Murray because it's taken him so many steps to get here where he is now. Could he be a guy that has trouble adjusting to the NFL?
Man, I mean, you see all these the national guys. You see whoever they talk about or whoever talks about Kenneth Murray. I feel like there's so much expectation or such a high expectation for him. If he wasn't I don't want to put a year number on it, but if he didn't have a really good career, there's going to be a lot of people that are really surprised. And I think I include myself in that group of people that thinks Kenneth Murray is about to have a really nice NFL career.
Oh, I heard Daniel Jeremiah talking. He was kind of what I was saying earlier. I mean, and I won't deny that Jeremiah's thoughts kind of weighed into mine, but he was this is a guy that you can be sure you've got a 10-year pro here. This isn't just a guy that's going to come in, flame out, or have a couple good years for you and then do, kind of fall away like we're just talking about with Miles Austin, get a little money and kind of fall apart. But that's just not, the way NFL teams see him being wired and that kind of stuff. And, I've never seen anything from Kenneth that would make me think he wants this. And like people have said, he's one of those guys that has seen some things in his life. I think a lot of these guys, they've never, I don't know if faced adversity is the right way, but they haven't seen real life stuff. He's seen real stuff. And that just, I don't know, those guys tend to, for whatever reason, they just seem to be able to adapt a little quicker than others do.
I saw that Dave Archer, he does the Sirius XM show on the College Channel. I've, I guess, gone on with him a couple times in the mornings. I think you have as well, Kerry. He compared him to a smaller Brian Urlacher. If he can have half the career that Brian Urlacher had, I think things will work out just fine for him.
Who the hell's that? Bob, thoughts?
Oh, Urlacher, he is a great one. I mean, I tell David Murray, whenever you talk to him, you come away feeling like this dude gets it. His head is on straight. But then the film didn't always translate to that. Even in 2019, I don't know what happened during that middle part of the season where he kind of disappeared. The Iowa State, the Kansas State, like that little 3-4 game stretch. That's why he wasn't up for the Butkus. That's why he didn't make the finalists there, because he still disappeared just a bit for regrouping and dominating going down the stretch and making those highlight reel plays. But when you hear him talk, you believe in everything he says, but there's still a part of me that sometimes it doesn't produce on tape what you're hearing coming out of his mouth.
Did you guys ever want to ask Kenneth Murray why he does his hair like he's in that movie Life with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence?
I don't think I've ever noticed it.
Yeah, the way he parts it, like he looks like he's in the 1930s.
Now I have to look up Kenneth Murray because I can't even picture it.
Now, I do want to say, for all those out there looking for things to watch during the pandemic, if you haven't seen Life, watch Life. Life is
really?
a truly great movie.
You recommending Life for a watch?
I love Life. I love it. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah,
it's a good movie. The whole can't get right character though makes me uncomfortable.
Well, it's one of those things where I don't know that you
and 20
I
years
can
ago.
make those jokes. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the yeah.
He's
So,
really good at baseball though. So he has that.
You want to eat that cornbread?
Well, see, that might be racist, Bob.
Yeah, we're gonna need the fact checker on this.
Who knew that Bob would be the one that got public outrage coming out of this?
It's amazing.
Today.
Like, guys, I don't know about you, but that's the most normal I've felt in a while. We have an official "Is this racist?" segment. That's great.
Yeah, you can tell the state's getting back open. We're getting back to normal. Everybody feels good.
Bob's getting comfortable.
Wow. All right, moving on from Kenneth Murray.
No, I do want to say
before
on
Bob
Murray,
nicknames him "Can't Get Right." Okay, let's move on.
Real quick on Kenneth Murray before we move on. I did think that what you asked Lincoln was interesting, Kerry, and that, and it's something that we've kind of talked about. Bob wrote about it on the teleconference recap up on the site. This is an important draft for not just Kenneth Murray, but I think it's really important for Alex Grinch, Brian Odom, Roy Manning, whoever you want to say on that new staff on the new side of the second year guys, as far as being able to go out and sell that on the recruiting trail to guys. It's important for Kenneth Murray to go in the first round and be able to. And I thought that was something that, in a way, Riley, when he talks to the media, he's using it to a certain extent to pitch a recruiting message. And I think that you're going to see that a lot over the next 24, 48, even probably 72 hours, going on into the weekend, that, first year of what they're going to call Speed D or whatever was not only a success, but imagine what you could do and when you recruit better, when you get better athletes on the field or on campus. I think that's going to be fascinating to see which way they spin that. And it's not really a spin job as much as the way that they're able to sell that over the weekend, because you're not able to recruit right now in a normal fashion.
Well, and it was interesting. Go ahead, Bob.
Was that a shot at Kerry Cooks or Parnell Motley with Lincoln Riley saying nobody would have thought that this guy could have got selected coming out of the 2018?
I took it as just him kind of marveling in his growth and how far he's come.
Yeah, I absolutely. That's fair.
But it was also interesting because someone asked him, like, who could you see continuing this NFL draft trend on, in the future? And Lincoln wanted nothing to do with that, because you're basically asking him, so who else is going to leave early next? Like, that's just not something you want to get into. But that's something that we do. And obviously I know, Josh, you're probably going to, you've banged the drum more than anybody. You probably look at OU's defense right now and say Ronnie Perkins is that guy that really has a chance to maybe be a special draft pick for this defense.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, is if this was like a one-off where Murray and Gallimore are going to get drafted on, day 1 or day 2, and then you don't have anything for a couple years, it's kind of hard to be like, oh no, it's coming. It's not that it's wrong. It's just that's tough to sell to recruits because they live for what's happening right now. But at the same time, when you've got guys like Perkins, you've got a guy like Jalen Redmond, you've got some pieces on that defense that can be that guy at some point in the future. I think you have to feel pretty good. I mean, guys, we forget about Jaden Davis and how good he was the first half of last year.
But it was only the first half.
I don't know if he hit a wall. I don't know what it was, but I mean, there's still reason to believe that guy's going to be a very good player for Oklahoma. So, that didn't change over that short a period. So, like I said, there are pieces there I like. I mean, we all know, and I don't think he's a high draft pick. I love Turner Yell. I think he's the kind of player that other players are going to like because he's a big hitter. He's explosive. He's in the middle of everything all the time. I mean, I think that's something that you can tell recruits, watch this guy. Look how fun he is. And imagine you at 6'2", 200 pounds and what you could do in that role. Those kind of things. But, yeah, Ronnie Perkins to me is the guy you definitely circle and say, this is our next guy.
His problem, though, is going to be if he has a great year, he's missing 5 games. If the season plays out, as normal, which is, we all know, is highly unlikely. But it's like he's going to play half a season and then become a first-round draft pick. It's hard to see that happening.
And to me, is that the best or worst thing for Oklahoma? Like, there's part of me that says they can maybe sell him on coming back because get some time away from the off-field trouble, have a full season on tape, do all this stuff. The 2021 team looks like it could be OU's best group in a while. Like, there's reason you can sell him on that, but I mean, I also understand the kid, you tell him, oh, well, you'll only be a second-round pick. Well, how much do I make? Well, you're going to make a couple $1 million a year. Okay, I'm probably going to go do that.
Yeah. Well, I think, one of the things that kind of intrigues me, too, about the defense is just knowing how much Alex Grinch loves him, and his career's kind of been interrupted, but I really want to see what Trey Norwood does because he's gotten a little bit bigger. He's going to be healthy when the season starts, whenever that is. Even if it started like it's supposed to, he should be healthy. Like, he could be one of those guys that really becomes the biggest playmaker on that defense from the nickelback spot.
Do you think he sticks
and arguably at a position that they need some help at? I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Go ahead, Josh. What was that?
I said, do you think he sticks at nickel? Like that? Yes. That's my
yes.
Okay.
I mean, Alex Grinch loves him at nickel. He is I don't want to say infatuated, but it's clear. I think Bob and Eddie would back me up when he talks about Trey Norwood. He gushes about him. He goes on and on forever. And, not having him at nickel last year and getting hurt, he was crushed when he got hurt.
Yes.
So it's not weird, but there's a really strong connection that Grinch feels toward Norwood as his nickelback, as his starting nickelback.
Is it safe to call that Alex's first row bromance?
I think it is safe. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think it was a fact that he just hated everybody else in the secondary that much that he wanted Norwood to be healthy as much as it was he really thought that Norwood could be a guy that could help him. I remember it was like one of the first times that we ever talked to Alex Grinch, even going back into the spring of last year. And Trey Norwood was like one of the first names that he brought up when it came to the secondary. Yeah. And obviously, because he's focused on the secondary, he might be one of the first names that came up. But he loves the possibility of what they could do with Trey Norwood in this defense. I completely agree with Kerry.
There's two guys on defense that, to me, fit where Neville Gallimore was heading into this year. And it's either got to do it now or it's never going to happen. It's Trey Brown and Caleb Kelly. Those are two guys I've been waiting to be superstars. Now Kelly will be a redshirt senior. Trey Brown will be a senior. I mean, these are guys I think they could be draftable guys, but they need to make the leaps, and I think they can, but we'll just have to see it first. Especially a healthy Kelly under this defense. Can someone finally bring out the best in him and understand where they need to put him so that he can be the best player possible?
Yeah. I mean, that's just such a mystery, what Caleb Kelly's going to look like, how he's going to be, where he's going to play, and is he going to excel? Because, I mean, it was kind of interesting. They played him so much last year. They weren't afraid to play him. And I wouldn't say that we saw much bad, but we didn't see a lot good. I mean, it wasn't like he was clearly a guy that they wanted out there, but it wasn't like a guy that was just making a huge difference because he was out there. So, outside of that, we talked a little bit about Neville, but it was weird because Lincoln wasn't asked about Neville today, and I think it was more he would have been if it hadn't been such a short press conference, and it was probably our fault as a media pool that he wasn't asked directly, but I think he's just the biggest oddity in this draft for Oklahoma because, and we've talked about this before, he's just all over the map. And I know Josh didn't see this because Ian Rappaport tweeted it, and he's blocked by Ian Rappaport. But, he had a video of him slamming a basketball and dribbling, showing off his handles and stuff like that. And it's kind of one of those things, like, that's Neville Gallimore. Like, he's very athletic. So why aren't more people talking about him?
I didn't. And I was going to say earlier, that's, we were talking about, that's the business. You get blocked by people. The only person of real note that I've been blocked by is in the business. So whatever. But
say something bad about Baltimore or something.
No, I made a joke about the Michael Kendricks thing when what was the deal? Rappaport reported he was leaving the Browns or going to the Browns. I can't remember what it was.
The tax problems and all that.
Yeah, and then he went off on him, and I made some joke, and it was totally like Rappaport has this right, and Mike, he just pissed off about it, and the linebacker didn't block me, but Rappaport did, so I don't know what that was about, but whatever. But no, I think that's exactly right, Kerry. I think people fall in love with the flash of Neville Gallimore because he'll show you stuff and you're like, wow, that's a first round dude. But when you look at it, you look the aggressive style of defense they played in. He was, nowhere near Oklahoma's leader in tackles for losses. He's not the guy that has consistently put up numbers even within this defense that should have been tailor made for a guy like him. So I have questions. He is a guy that I could see being one of the steals of this draft, and he's a guy I could see being out of the league in 4 years.
And Josh, you mentioned it last week that how concerning is it that he actually only plays better when he doesn't play as much? Is that someone you really want to, take a second round pick on for someone who, I don't want to say he's spot duty, but he kind of is. If you don't feel like you can play him every single down because the more he's on the field, the worse he starts to get.
And that was after he'd lost a bunch of weight and trimmed up and, kind of been watched. You know, they were trying to get him down to a level they thought worked. But like I said, he had moments. I mean, like, you go back and look at that Texas film, now that's first-round pick. Like, I mean, he was so dominant that day. And then there was times in both the Baylor games where I thought he was really, really good. But, I mean, we talked about Kenneth Murray having a 3-game stretch where he kind of vanished. I mean, there were points when you were like, well, okay. And I do want to say there were a lot of times when Gallimore would create pressure and somebody else would get the benefit of what he'd done. Like, I'm not saying he's not a –
Ronnie Perkins was a big beneficiary of stuff he did, yeah.
Exactly. I agree completely. And like I said, so I don't want this to be like I don't think Gallimore's good. I think he can be very, very good. He's still like – he got better as a senior – but, I mean, they talked about it his entire time there. Consistency has always been his battle, and he's going to have to find a way to do that because in the NFL, the margin for error, you have one bad play in college, it might be 8 yards. You have one bad play in the NFL, and it could be, you know, the difference in the game.
Neville Gallimore finished fourth on the team with 7.5 tackles for loss, but he trailed Jalen Redmond, who was third on the team, by 4, almost 4.5. So, 4.5. So, just kind of an FYI there. Kenneth Murray led the team in tackles for loss with 17.
Yeah, I mean, Murray was top 15-ish in the country with that 17. I mean, he had a great year. But I also think it should give OU fans some hope that you've got. I mean, now whenever Perkins gets back and however that plays out with the schedule possibly being weird, but you put he and Redmond opposite each other, and that's a lot of pressure created from the outside if you can find somebody inside to keep those guards honest and keep everybody from doubling the life out of those two ends.
I'm just trying to think, you know, with Jalen Hurts, CeeDee Lamb, I mean, it's a little odd. You know, throw Lee Morris in there. It's a little odd to have kind of that small class that with really one ballyhooed guy after having two straight years of number one picks. But I don't know. I mean, I think that's probably a good thing, though, if you have Neville Gallimore going in the second and Kenneth Murray in the first. And then, hell, even if, you know, Piedmont is drafted in the 5th round, it's just like, I think it might be good to show that you've had 3 defensive guys drafted and 2 offensive guys drafted. I mean, it sends a pretty good message for what Oklahoma. Not that, I mean, you know, not that they're going to get that much mileage out of it, because unless you're throwing Chase Youngs out there, that's when it's really going to matter. But, yeah, at least it's something, though. And you know, that's what we were talking about earlier, what Lincoln was talking about. It's just like, how much effort have they put into the Jordan documentary? Like, they just need something to promote and to sell and to, you know, pimp and all that stuff. Like, can you imagine if you have tweet notifications on for Lincoln Riley during the draft? Like, I'm gonna put the over under at 10 of number of notifications I get after Kenneth Murray gets drafted just from Lincoln Riley alone.
That shit's smart, though, isn't it? I mean, they are legitimately taking advantage of a free opportunity to promote themselves. I think, I mean, in a way, it's not. I wouldn't say it's
you talking about the Jordan stuff?
Everybody should be doing it.
You talking about the Jordan stuff or just the draft?
The Jordan stuff, the NFL draft stuff. I mean, they're basically taking advantage. It's almost a loophole in society because they can't recruit normally. And I thought that was a good question by Kersey today during the teleconference, just as far as like they are having to find innovative ways, which the governor should love because it's innovative, but they're having to find innovative ways to recruit because they can't bring kids on campus right now. It's literally impossible.
I think Lincoln needs to send out tweets from massage parlors Friday. Are those opening, or is it just haircut places and gyms? And
I think it's just salons and nail places and what are they called? Nail salons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Salon
by
nails.
Appointment only or something like that.
But I think it's a really good idea what they're doing. And
yeah,
I know
and
it's kind of fun to make fun of, but like I don't think that they'll necessarily I don't think that Caleb Williams, for instance, isn't going to commit because he's tweeting during the draft, but they're just extending their brand. They're extending their reach over everybody.
Yeah. It is, I would say that Caleb Williams has had more interactions with Lincoln Riley than more than any other uncommitted, I'm air quoting, uncommitted kid I've ever seen.
Easily.
Maybe even
Not
committed
even
kid.
Easily. Between the quote tweets, retweets, easily. No question.
Do you have Caleb Williams notifications turned on, Bob?
I don't, but I've Lincoln Riley one.
Okay.
So, yeah, you see Caleb pop up time
Yeah,
and
you
time
do.
again, for sure.
All right. Well, we talked about, what it could mean for recruiting. And I think Josh is would you say Alex Grinch's biggest recruiting win so far is Bryson Washington?
Yeah, I don't think there's really any doubt. I mean, there's no other guy that was so clearly him. I can tell you, there are guys like Noah Arinze that I can pretty much tell you with confidence that he probably wouldn't have had his offer without Alex Grinch. That was a guy Grinch really liked. So I think there are guys that are part of the class because of him, but they wouldn't have had a chance to be part of the class, I guess would be the way to say it. But Washington is the guy that he really had his fingerprints on. Not only did he went after him, but he was the guy who really recruited him. He was the centerpiece of it.
So I mean,
And he
go ahead, Bob.
and he was the clear win, because we all thought he was as a token visit for the spring game last year, because Washington's going to commit to Texas, so it doesn't even matter. We were looking at Jacoby Covington and Dante Manning, Ryan Watts. Those were the guys we were eyeing as being realistic members of the 2020 class, and lo and behold, it actually ended up being that Washington is the guy, and that he makes that call when they're all at the Rangers game, and he ends up talking to the entire coaching staff.
So let's say the draft happens, Kenneth Murray, goes with the 25th pick or whatever I don't even know where he's slotted at right now. What is the best case scenario? I mean, who are some of the guys defensively, recruit wise, that are out there that would make you say, okay, they've really got a chance to turn things around now? This is an elite guy that really could change things for Alex Grinch of the OU defense.
I would point, and it's a guy that I've kind of been beating the drum for a while. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be some linebackers they have a better chance with. But the guy that I'm going to say this might give them a little boost that they need is a guy named Smail Munden from Georgia. I have been told repeatedly, I mean, he was going to visit the weekend that the shutdown started. So it shut down on, Wednesday or Thursday? He was supposed to come in that following weekend. Obviously, that's a huge missed opportunity for Oklahoma. With all the good breaks they had with Caleb and Bryce Foster and some other guys, that's a tough one. But this is a guy that, I have talked to people, and I know for myself, I think he's the best linebacker in the country. I think he's unbelievably good. From a school named Paulding County in Georgia. Very long, 6'3", 210, big athletic guy, very much like Murray in that way, just kind of a long, rangy guy. So I think they can tell him, hey, we did this with Kenneth, and Kenneth was a guy that was, played some safety in high school. He didn't have any experience playing Mike when he came in, and you do. You have a linebacker's background. We can plug you in there. We can make you this kind of guy as well. And then I'm sure, and I would guess Brian Odom won't do it, but I'm going to guess everybody else in that staff is going to send him that quote that Kenneth Murray had after the Peach Bowl, best linebacker coach in the country, Brian Odom, blah, 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 blah. I mean, they're going to beat him over the head with that thing. And I think Oklahoma has a chance. And our guy Chad Simmons, who is probably more plugged into the state of Georgia than any national analyst in any state I'm aware of. Chad Simmons knows Georgia like the back of his hand. And he put out a thing, I think it was late last week, kind of ranking the contenders, and I think he had Oklahoma like 4th with Munnan behind like, in-state Georgia, Auburn, who always is a huge presence in Georgia, and I think maybe Florida, I think were the top 4. So don't get me wrong, Oklahoma has some hurdles to clear, but if they can get any sort of normalcy in this recruiting where they get 4 or 5 official visits out of him, I think Oklahoma will get one, and they've got a chance of that guy if they can find a way to really, make this Kenneth Murray news work for them right now.
Do you get the sense that a lot of schools, at least the bigger schools, they're kind of is there kind of a push to get kids to commit before everything does open back up, so they don't have a chance to take these visits?
Oh, I think there's definitely something to that, and it's not even so that they can't take the visits, because I think the schools know. Really, with the exception of Clemson and the decommitment of Corey Foreman, which we can get into in a little bit if we want to, the number 1 player in the country, most schools have come to accept guys are going to take visits, even if they're committed. Like, there's very few exceptions. Really, what's funny enough is the one that is kind of deviating from that is running backs. Usually running backs kind of commit early, and it's over, and it's kind of like quarterbacks. So you get that variation. But, I mean, there's no question. Schools are trying to get these kids to commit basically because I think it's like we've talked about with the Caleb situation. They have captive audiences. They have, big-time kid commits to Oklahoma or Ohio State or wherever, you start – there's so many more guys that are going to notice it because what the hell else are they going to do? I mean, it's not like they missed it because they were watching the NBA playoffs or they missed it because they were doing this. Unless you're watching The Last Dance or watching the NFL Draft over the next 3 days, there's nothing better to be doing. So it's a perfect time to be getting commitments, and I think it's why you see there's a few schools that are having a lot of success. Ohio State, North Carolina, and USC. And those 3, they've all landed a lot of commitments in short areas of time, and I think it's because these kids can see it, and then once one guy happens, another domino falls, and it just kind of it builds on itself, even if it's not exactly part of the plan.
You mentioned Ohio State. Can we talk about what you know about Jantzen Dunn?
Sure. Go ahead.
Just to start, have you ever heard of a recruiting story like this? Is damn near on my scale. This is as close you get to like somebody just making up offers, in a way. I know it's not as crazy as that, but have you ever been a part of a crazier recruitment story?
The only one I can recall, and Carrie's the only one that's going to remember this name, is Antonio Clay from like 2001, who committed and decommitted, I believe, 5 times before he eventually signed with Clemson. And this is all over the course of like a couple of months. And there was a one point in time when he had committed to 3 schools at the same time. I believe it was Oklahoma, Clemson,
but Josh, Velus Jones was kind of that way too.
Velus Jones is crazy. Velus Jones is a nutso recruitment. There's no doubt. That one I probably try and block because I'm just scarred from it. Because
was it his uncle?
Yes.
Okay.
He had an uncle that was involved, and it's a whole story. We won't bore everybody with that. But Jantzen Dunn, so Saturday night, and there had been, Bob can probably back me up because I'm sure he heard some similar stuff. There had been some gossip that Oklahoma was making a move. But I didn't think it was serious. Like, I thought, this is jockeying, like all that's going on with Ohio State. This feels like something where they're trying to set up a little bit of, excitement. Something's going to happen because everybody told me Ohio State. It was Ohio State. There was no point to worry. This is a Kentucky guy. It made sense. Like, there was no reason to think that wasn't accurate. And he's got some connections. One of the, he plays with a 7-on-7 team sometimes that's based out of Dallas, a group called True Buzz. And you kind of thought, okay, this is just nothing. And then the eyes went out, and I won't lie, my first thought was Kendall Daniels. I thought, okay, Kendall, because he'd had that tweet early in the day where he said something like plans have changed. And I had talked to Kendall some through the day, and he'd been kind of vague about what it was. I come to find out later, it had nothing to do with recruiting. It was a wholly unrelated conversation. But as I started digging, I'm like, oh, okay, this is Jantzen Dunn. Like, and I finally got somebody to confirm it that's what's happening. Okay, great. So, guys, I had been the only place we've gone during quarantine is to my in-laws' house because they're basically, they don't leave the house. So the only people that are at risk are them. So, and we're like, if you guys want us to come out, we'll come out. So we go out there. So I had been out there that day, and, the girls swam in their pool, and, everything's just kind of fine. So I am driving home that night, and I had literally stopped at one point to turn on the notifications for Jantzen Dunn because I was like, he's going to commit while we're driving home. I get all the way home and nothing happens. I'm like, that's kind of weird, because I had been told it was going to be before like 10 o'clock. And I get home and it's like 9:15, and all of a sudden I don't know if my phone hadn't been sending the alerts. I don't know nothing happened. And I look at my phone and it's just gone bananas. I've got DMs everywhere. I'm like, and that's like the worst sign. Like Tiffany, if we're in a movie or something and she hears my phone go off a bunch of times, she's like, what happened? Like she immediately knows if my phone goes off more than like 3 times within like 30 seconds, something shitty has happened. And I look at it and I'm like, oh no, this is all changed. It's flipped. And so basically what I have come to understand is Dunn committed to Oklahoma. And that's when Lincoln Riley set out the eyes. Well, at that point, I guess Ohio State caught wind of what was happening. Again, it's a Kentucky guy. That doesn't take long for that news to travel. And got in touch with him. And there had apparently been, and from everything I am told, this is a legitimate thing. There had been I guess the Dunns did not know that they had a committable offer. They thought Ohio State was waiting on him and was not pushing. And so they wanted to commit and be done with it. And when he committed to Oklahoma, Ohio State reached out and said, no, we have a spot for you. And I know people will say, oh, no, Ohio State got scared and they jumped on. I had been told by an Ohio State source that I trust a lot that he had there was never any question that he was a priority for them. They wanted him. There was never any reason for there to be a miscommunication, but somehow it got messed up. And so he immediately flips to Ohio State because he wanted to commit, he wanted to be done, and Ohio State's where he wanted to go. I talked to some people, and obviously nobody's happy about it. Nobody's happy it played out this way. But at the same time, it's better now than in December. Like if he'd have been committed for 6 months and then in December Ohio State gets, oh, okay, yeah, we do want you. We're going to take you. And Oklahoma has nowhere to go. Now they've got a ton of options. They can go in a bunch of different directions, and they're going to be fine. But the idea that this could have happened to them 6 months down the road and they're kind of left holding the bill, that would have really pissed some people off. As it is, it's kind of crappy. You didn't want it to go down the way it did, but I think everybody's going to, survive it.
I don't know. It did a lot of damage to the reputation of the Eyeballs.
Oh, people stop talking
12th man from Edmond was all over me. Don't you worry.
Block that idiot, all right? It's easy.
That seems like a personal problem, Bob. You just need to mute or block that guy.
Yeah, that's on you, all right? Nobody wants to hear nobody will ever hear Bob's 12th man, woe is me shit again, okay? It's on you. You block him. Take care of this. It's never to be discussed on the pod again.
Tend your own yard, Bob.
This is one of the first times it wasn't just him. There were a lot of OU fans that were saying, does this mean OU's falling off? Does this mean the Buckeyes have a better bag, man? I thought by Monday afternoon when Dunn made it known, everyone had sort of understood what the score was. But after I tweeted that, these were the eyes, but they're not, now you can just move on. That was about as much of a tweet that I've got replies to in a long time. So I guess
because you name names.
Well, I guess you just kind of think people follow it day to day, and some really don't, and did not see it coming.
Bob, when I saw that, there was definitely a visual meme where I was like, "That's a bold strategy, Cotton." Like that was gonna, woo! I was like, "That's gonna go bad."
I kind of thought the same thing. Yeah, when I saw that,
well,
I was like,
I did it with Major Burns, Jonah Monheim, and didn't really do much of anything. So sure. I was like, all right.
We start getting into names. There have been quite a few eyeball defectors in the line.
Well, Bob, you're the official tracker. How many have there been? Is it 5?
That's what trying to.
Oh, I don't think we've ever done this before. We put Bob on the spot and he wasn't ready. I love it.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to
my
like the
life.
guys who actually didn't commit, because that's why Jonah Monheim, you had Major Burns. Those are two that definitely stand out. I mean, obviously you have a bunch that decommit and stuff like that, but I'm trying to think if there's another outside of those two from last year, because I thought Major Burns was the very first one.
That ever
Whereas, wait a
screwed
minute.
Lincoln.
That didn't
The eyes
actually
don't
make
matter
the
anymore.
commitment. Yeah. People, this is your pride that is bothering you with this. College football is not talking about Lincoln Riley's eye emojis and concerned about the value being lost. They don't care.
Yeah, nobody gives a
Recruits
shit.
Don't care.
This is
It's not like-
it's OU world problems is what it is.
Yes. This is, and I get it. It's you being mad that OU lost the commitment, but don't misplace it. Like, it's, would you rather not know that something is afoot? I mean, because he could just do nothing, and you'd have no idea anything was going on, and this whole thing could have transpired, and you'd never know, and you would have nothing to complain about, or you'd find something else to complain about. Relax. Like, it's a cool thing. It builds some excitement. It's a good deal, and there's no, like, if you wanted to say, if I was going to say anything to Riley about how to handle it, I would almost use it as a prod. Like, okay, I'm going to tweet out the eyes if you're going to have this out in the next week, the next 10 days. Otherwise, kind of let me know. I'll hold off. We'll wait until you're ready. And you can almost, come back to it like, oh, you about ready for those eyes? I mean, you can make it something where it's a carrot, like the kid, like getting the kid moving in the direction you need him to move. Rather than, okay, you told me, okay, I'm going to put the eyes out, and now we wait.
You're saying use the eyes from a position of power, not a position of desperation.
Yep. That I mean, like, you don't have
It's
to
like,
do it that way, but I mean, if that's the alteration I
you
would.
you can't get the girl, so you buy her a lot of expensive jewelry versus the girl, you making the girl earn the jewelry.
Exactly. Probably with sex.
And then you,
but anyway,
and then you crush up one of those pills and you give her a drink and you wait for like 13, 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
I don't know what emoji that one is, Eddie.
Yeah, what is the date rape emoji?
That's the Bill Cosby. You can put a Bill Cosby picture.
Nobody do the hey, because that will be racist. Don't do that. That's appropriation.
I don't know about that.
Yellow pudding pop.
Oh, no. Bob doubles down. Bob has been in quarantine too long.
Racist bastard.
Bob is cracking up. Oh, jeez.
All right.
Even I'm uncomfortable.
Eddie's first blush on air.
Okay. You done f***ed up when Eddie's embarrassed. Josh just literally went Burt Reynolds just now. Did you hear that?
You like that laugh?
Yeah.
I got that laugh in me sometimes. I got a lot of variety
let me
in my
ask you
laugh
guys.
because I don't like my actual laugh.
Let me ask you, Josh and Bob and Carrie, just as far as recruiting goes, and somebody asked me this on Twitter earlier this week, and I really didn't know which way to go with it, but, Ohio State has 17 commits right now. That's incredible to me that they have 17 commits, and we're not even to the beginning of May. You look at a school like Oklahoma State, you know how many commits they have right now in the 2021 class? They have one commit.
Yeah.
Ohio State's doing something special right now. They really are. It's
Special's a word for it.
I mean, it's hard to. I mean, see, you yourself are
You just said it.
I mean, you're implying there's something going on.
You're
Josh
right.
has heard
It's not
something.
fair to. It's not fair to make that implication. No, and I haven't. But man, it's really weird that nobody else is having this success. I mean, not Alabama.
But the
not
other
Georgia.
the only other school in the country that is North Carolina.
Yeah, they're doing well.
Yeah, and I mean,
you know what?
Brewster's not even there anymore.
Ohio State was like the first school to cancel their spring game. Like, it does. It's like, did they know something? Like, how this was going to help them with recruiting if they just got rid of spring football?
Well, yeah, maybe they had a plan ready because they knew. It's like, all right, we're not going to act like this is going on. We know it's shut down, and here's how we're going to attack it.
And, guys, people always bring up the Ohio State example when they want to compare, what Oklahoma does with recruiting and, they should recruit like Ohio State does, blah, blah, blah. And I say it every time. Ohio's in-state talent changes that ability. They have 7 commitments from within state lines, and I believe 5 of those guys are 4-stars. So, one is a 5-star. So, I mean, it allows you, when you get those kind of commitments, okay, we've got 3 linebacker spots. Okay, one's already taken by the in-state kid. All right, well, now we can go lean on this kid from Pennsylvania or lean on this kid from Florida, wherever it is they're going. It makes it easier because you already have a few spots taken, and you can kind of tell these guys, hey, man, it's at a premium. We're going to be first come, first serve between you and 4 other guys. So if you want to do it, you better do it. And that's why the Alabamas and the Georgias can do the same thing. But people don't think of Ohio like that. Ohio has a lot of really good football players. So they can do similar stuff. And like I said, when you have Jack Sawyer at defensive end, who's I think the number 3 or 4 player in the whole country, that makes it easier to lean on Tunmise Adelier. I mean, it just allows those things to happen. And then, I mean, obviously, I don't want to just say it's that. When you're producing top 5 defensive ends every single friggin' draft and, an elite top 10 corner every other year, that's pretty easy to recruit to. I mean, that's a lot of sales you can make. So I don't want to make it sound like it's not deserved. Ohio State's done plenty to be worthy of recruiting this kind of talent, but so have a lot of other schools, and nobody else is doing what they're doing right now.
Man, that's a lot of
USC's on a nice run too, which I never saw coming.
I've never seen people jump on the sinking ship, but I mean, that's cool, whatever. And he made some nice hires. I mean, Clay Helton has done some things to make that staff better. I mean, including Todd Orlando. I mean, that's a nice hire. There are things you can do there that make sense, but I just don't. I can't figure out why. I mean, we might as well get into it a little bit. Corey Foreman decommitting from Clemson, a long-time commitment, or not a long time, but 2 or 3 months now.
Is he the one that had the tattoo?
Yes,
okay.
Got a Clemson tattoo on his forearm. And the word is that USC, if he was picking today, it'd probably be USC. And I get it, the random 3-star or 4-star from the LA area that wants to go to USC and that sort of thing. Corey Foreman can go anywhere in the country, and he's going to pick USC that is teetering on collapse. And I don't understand it. That just I think you're getting caught up in the wrong stuff. And he trains with a guy whose kid plays at USC, so there's some mixed motivations there that you wonder about.
Unless they're just telling kids after they, I'm blanking on their coach's name.
Helton.
Unless they're just telling kids as soon as they leave Helton's office, if he's not the coach, don't worry, Graham Harrell's going to take his job.
Yeah. I'd rather have Graham Harrell as my head coach than Clay Helton right now. I'd totally be fine with that. But to connect it to, there's a reason I brought it up. Sorry. I have talked to a few people, and Oklahoma is going to try and get involved in the Corey Foreman pursuit. I don't know how far it will take them. I mean, they are, with Jamar Cain kind of leading the way, they're starting to try and grow that presence again in California. I don't think there's any question they have seen that as something they've lost sight of. And Bob and I have talked about it in the pod. I mean, that used to be, you could count on 2 or 3 California kids every year in Oklahoma's class, and that has not been the case over the last 3 or 4 years. And I think they are trying to fix that, and he was a big part of that. So they're going to work on Foreman. Would I rule out an official visit? No, I think that's possible. Do I think Oklahoma is going to be a true contender at the end? Probably not. But, I think it shows you that Oklahoma has enough confidence to go in and try to work on these. And I know they're working on JT Tuamalo from the Washington area. That is, he is a guy that I could see Oklahoma getting in the situation there because his mother plans to move to the Southwest. I believe it's Amarillo. I can't remember. Somewhere West Texas after he signs because she's got a bunch of family in the area. So you could make some sense of that. I mean, if you really wanted to get down the road. But, Oklahoma's kind of late to the race. We'll see what happens there. But I'm told that Lincoln Riley, Jamar Cain, really Alex Grinch, the whole staff is really involved there and thinks, maybe a visit could happen.
I would say make sure you take him on a tattoo parlor tour. Maybe show some cover-up options from that Clemson tattoo.
She's the same guy John Flynn used.
What? John Flynn, the former offensive lineman?
No. Tiger King watchers will get the reference.
Okay.
I'll be fair. I saw Tiger King, and my first thought was former OU offensive lineman John Flynn. I was like, that's a weird reference, but all right.
I was like, is this some inside joke that like 5 people are laughing their asses off that know John Flynn right now?
No, there will be the people. Most people will get it.
Eddie's got like fans at home with like a little little board where they got to play the words. They got to get all of them right. They're like, "Oh, John Flynn hit, I win."
Maybe I do, Bagman.
Anything else recruiting wise that you want to hit on before we get out of here, fellas?
Really, 2 things. And it's on Oklahoma on the board. For those that aren't members that still listen to the pod, hit us up, Josh at Soonerscoop.com, or, like Carrie says, my DMs are open. It's Josh_Scoop. You can hit us up there. We'll find some way to get you on the site if you're interested in signing up at this point. We know everybody needs something to get themselves, get their mind off everything else that's going on in the world. But 2 things I did want to touch on that are in Oklahoma that I put up right before we started the pod. Danny Stutzman, the linebacker from Florida, has put out a top 6 yesterday that included Oklahoma, Virginia Tech, Minnesota, A&M, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia. And, you look at the list and you're like, Oklahoma sticks out from that group a little bit. Now, A&M's obviously, recruits very well, but that A&M's usually a bigger battle for Oklahoma when it's in Texas. Elsewhere, they seem to do pretty well against A&M. But what I did want to say is I have talked to a few people, and that guy is absolutely a take for Oklahoma. He's a guy that they like a lot. And I think it's really a matter of convincing him that he's a priority for the class. I think there is some – I don't know if it's him or people around him that kind of wonder if Oklahoma really sees him as a priority. But I think that's a guy Oklahoma really likes, has really come on late. I'm hearing even like Clemson has started to take some note of him. So, he's a guy that is picking up a lot of steam, and right now may not be a name that excites OU fans, but maybe 6 months from now when there's been more film and more evaluation, I think people might like him a little bit more. The only other one I wanted to talk about is JoJo Earl, the wide receiver from Aledo that tweeted out last night that he's announcing soon.
You said it right, too.
Come to his – yeah, I know. I have to think about it. You give me all these crazy-ass names, I can get those right, but Aledo I screw up every time. I don't know why. Anyway, he announced last night that he is going to announce soon. I know a lot of people had immediately kind of jumped like, oh, it's Oklahoma. And I even had a few people hit me up like, is that what you're hearing? And it wasn't. He's not a name that's come up a lot for me lately. And talking to a few people, I think there is kind of like what I was saying with Stutzman, but to a different degree. I'm not sure how he feels about the situation at wide receiver at Oklahoma with all, with Bridges, Hazelwood, Weiss, and Marvin Mims, obviously last year. I think there is some concern of just being a little bit of a traffic jam, and I don't think OU is going to be the choice. I'm picking LSU. I feel pretty confident that that's what he's thinking right now. But, I just know, like I said, there's a lot of people out there listening that may be thinking OU's involved. I don't think OU is really among his final choices right now. And I think it's something OU had to battle with Marvin Mims last year. So maybe maybe over time they can turn that around and change that if they want to. But at the same time, with guys like Christian Leary and some of the other receivers they're in on, Mario Williams, both those guys out of Florida, I think if OU could get Williams and Leary, it's not to say that Earl's not a really good player they wouldn't like to have, but I think they'd be more than fine at wide receiver.
Good stuff. We did some extra pods, and I think we'll probably try and do that from time to time. We're even trying to set it up where I can just shut the hell up and let Bob and Josh do a pod with somebody, so maybe that will work itself out. So maybe you guys could interview Lauren Chamberlain since Eddie won't.
Oh.
Maybe we could
I didn't say that I wouldn't. I didn't say that I wouldn't.
Okay. Well, maybe since Eddie hasn't, how about that? No, but I think it'd be good, if we could throw some. I think it will be good just to throw some extra pods out there from time to time, especially with everything that's going on. And once we open up the state and everyone gets really sick again and it spreads even further and we shut down again, we'll have more time to do that. Because I totally believe that's going to happen. And we'll never see sports
way to take
again.
us out on a bang there.
I just want to see the sports, Josh.
I'm with you.
All right?
I'm with
this
you.
Is I'm not really that political of a person. I have opinions on certain things, but it's like people start attacking me about, oh, you liberal ass. Like, no, I'm not a liberal ass. I just want sports to come back. And if people will not stay the fucking home, then we're not going to get sports back. It drives me insane. I just want to tell people I'm not being political.
That seems too sane to me. That seems too reasonable to me.
I guess I just need to do it. Couldn't I start a Facebook group like Stay at Home for Sports? And we could have non-rallies? Or maybe we can...
That's what Lincoln Riley was doing, all those PSAs, trying to get that through people's heads.
Do you think he gets
seen
like
a single
hate
one of
message
those
liberal
PSAs.
hippies?
Where are the PSAs at?
They were on Twitter like within the first couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course he's got this stuff like the OU branded mask that he's put on Twitter. Like he's trying to do his part.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to people that are out of work right now. It's not a good scene. But I also don't think we need to be going to bowling alleys. I think we can live without those.
I stopped going to bowling alleys when you stopped being allowed to smoke cigarettes inside.
But most people, if you ask, I'm surprised that bowling alleys even exist anymore, to be honest with you.
I'm actually, that actually was a lie. I've been to a bowling alley in the last month, and it was or I guess not the last month, the last 2 months. It was a lot of fun. Every once in a while, you got to get your bowl on over off Pennsylvania and Oklahoma City.
I've been there many times as a kid.
Some good Panther family runs it. The old Allen.
Wasn't there
Allen
a Big
family.
Ed's Hamburgers right in that shopping center right next to that?
Still is.
Yeah.
Gary,
Is that
Big Ed's
the only
still
Big
open.
Ed's that's still there? Man, I need to go up there sometime.
Still there.
I think
There was one over where I grew up off of 122nd and Rockwell, and that one closed. And I think that it's the same Big Ed's. I haven't been there. I bet I haven't been in that building in 15 years.
I bet it's been longer for me. I bet
Maybe that'll be the next place maybe that should be the place that we do our first pod out in the wild when we have a live audience.
Big Ed's
Big
Hamburgers.
Try and get 1,000 people in there May 2nd.
We'll give a free year subscription to anybody that can eat the Big Ed burger. Do they still have? Do they? I wonder. Do they still have? Do they still have the Big Ed's challenge? I wonder.
I mean, it's literally probably been 15 years since I've been there, so I have no idea.
Ed died.
I'll go do some recon once everything opens. I hope they're still open.
Yeah, that'd be tough. If this killed Big Ed's, I'd need to go to Taco Tico just to make sure that I get that one more time in case they go kaput.
Somebody tagged me on Twitter. I think it was it must have been last week maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that they were at Taco Tica and just were thinking about me. I said, that's not me.
Yeah, I know. I saw that whole thing. You lied too.
I still think it's good.
No, you don't. You won't go. You won't even go in. Like, I have to go in while you sit in the car and eat.
That was just the last time that we went there. I wasn't feeling it. I think I'm ready to get back. I'm ready to get
you. You're such a liar.
No, I'll go eat there the next time we go to Kansas.
That's not true at all. I don't believe that. Bob can't go there anyway because of his weird digestive issues.
This is true. This is very true.
I'm not lying. See, I'm not a liar like Eddie, Bob. I'm not going to lie about things.
But something tells me that Bob has just said this, so he's running a long con game. I don't know what.
So he can control where we eat every time we go on a road trip.
Yeah. I think that's what's going on. You call me the liar, but Bob's just conning us a little bit.
Genius, Bob.
It was
genius.
It was worth it to be in the hospital 3 days and have that hospital bill all for the long con.
I knew it.
Bob just had half of his intestines taken out for no reason, just to be able to control dinner for the rest of his life.
Bob is Kaiser Soze at
Oh,
dinner.
God. Anyway, I'm going to stop before I get in trouble because I can feel it coming. So, all right. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And we'll be back. We'll keep doing this every week. Even though we're throwing in extra pods here and there when we can, we'll continue to stay current, or on track with the midweek Unofficial 40. So don't worry about that. So thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks to Josh. Thanks to Eddie. Thanks to Bob. And we'll be back here next week once again for the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com.